DCS has been my favorite flight sim for quite a few years, and the FA-18 has been my favorite bird. It's almost always the one that I fly, though lately I've taken more interest in the F-16 as well and find myself using that quite a bit. But there are so many things to do in DCS and never tried them all, and for this video I thought it would be fun to see what happens if you launch an FA-18 from carrier with its wings folded. And then we're going to fly it around for a bit and see what its handling characteristics are like with its wings folded. So let's go ahead and finish up the launch procedure and get ourselves up in the air.
301, request takeoff. 301, you are cleared for takeoff already. Climb 300 at QFE 29.93.
If you happen to be wondering why you're not seeing any comms menus while I go about the flight, it's because I'm using voice attack and VACOM to control the radio aspects of DCS. If you haven't tried voice attack and VACOM, I very much recommend them. They take a little fine-tuning to your setup, but they add greatly to the sense of immersion in this flight simulator, as you can control almost any radio aspect as if you were using an actual radio. Upon launch with the wings folded, I notice an immediate instability. The FA-18 with the wings out is pretty stable and reliable in flight, but with the wings folded, this bird definitely wants to wobble around a bit. I also notice I'm pressing on the rudder pedal to port now and notice an immediate difference in the way the rudders handle. With the wings folded, this plane has about as much rudder authority as the F-16, something I always really liked about the F-16. The pilot, even flying at high speeds, has a lot of rudder authority. With the FA-18s, I'm sure you know that anything above the lowest speeds, pressing the rudder pedals accomplishes very little. But when the wings are folded, this plane feels a lot more like an F-16, and a steep press of the rudder pedals brings on an immediate bit of turn and a lot of roll. So what I'm going to do is fly the cold start instant mission for the Marianas map. The Marianas map is a beautiful map, by the way. It's a new one that DCS made and distributed for free. And the Marianas Islands are just gorgeously rendered with great and exacting detail. I'm going to keep our altitude pretty low through most of this flight, so you'll get to see a lot of this detail, and I also want to see if this plane is steady enough to handle with the wings folded in some pretty tight flying conditions. The background chatter that you're hearing is a feature of VACOM, one of the mods that can be added to it just called chatter. It can be a little distracting at times, but overall I like it. It also adds a sense of immersion to the flight simulator. We're going to fly over one of the more wooded parts of the island here and head out to a naval docking station almost directly in front of us on that point just ahead, where there is presently an aircraft carrier in dock. We're going to get down nice and low and take a look at that. And I have to say, as I'm playing with the stick as we fly over there, I'm really impressed at the responsiveness of the FA-18 with the wings folded. If the real bird can actually be flown with the wings folded up, it kind of makes me wonder why the Navy never made a clipped wing version of the FA-18. It is just so agile. No, I don't claim to be a military expert or anything. I'm not one of those guys that sits around looking at specs all day of weapons and aircraft platforms and such. I just like to fly, and I appreciate the agility in this version of the F-18, the folded wing version. Alright, we're doing a low flying pass now over the region, and there's our aircraft carrier. The landscape in the carrier itself is so beautifully rendered, and I've just always been impressed with DCS. It's been around for a long time, this flight simulator. Eagle Dynamics constantly upgrades it, keeps the graphics, keeps the technology at the tip of the spear, so to speak. The clouds, the landscape, they are just all so beautifully rendered. Bodies of water, rivers and oceans and things just come out beautifully. Anyway, let's dive down and take a closer look at the landscape on this next leg of the cold start Marianas Island journey, and continue to tempt fate with a few simple aerobatics of the FA-18 aircraft. Look at the beautiful blue of the shallows down there. Eagle Dynamics has just done such a gorgeous job with this map. It's one of the things I love about DCS and flight sims in general, with the pandemic going on and lockdowns and risk of being stuck somewhere when you travel. It's hard to get out and travel, but In a way, flight sims can get you there, can't they? The plane is letting me know I'm getting a little lower to the ground than it likes to be, but that's okay. In the end, it's up to me, isn't it? Besides, this is only a virtual aircraft. It hardly matters if we crash.
Mike 8-9, let's go ahead and look for your...
I love the sailboats and the aqua blue and the shallows. This whole map is just so beautifully rendered. Look at the clouds reflecting on the water even. There's just so much gorgeous immersion in the DCS maps. It is a military flight sim, but honestly, you could have a lot of fun just flying civilian aircraft around in this flight sim and taking a look at the world as Eagle Dynamics has rendered it. It's so well done. Right down to what looks like a solar power station just up ahead. From what I understand, when DCS makes these virtual maps, they use a combination of satellite imagery and a technique sort of like digital painting to really bring the most out of the maps at both high and low altitudes and give the users an incredible sense of reality. Well, that's enough praise of the Marianas map. It's just gorgeous in a word. This plane, the FA-18 with the wings folded, is just a hot rod. It is so much fun to fly. It really does feel a lot more like the F-16. I put a couple hundred hours in the F-16 and a lot more than that into the FA-18. And to me, the F-16 has always felt like a nimble little hot rod of a fighter craft. It has and creates a need for speed. Anybody who's ever flown the F-16 in DCS knows that plane does not handle well when it slows down, whereas the FA-18 is made to handle well at low speeds and high speeds. It doesn't go as fast as the F-16, but in feel, it makes me think of a high-powered, larger car like a police cruiser. It doesn't have that nimbleness of the F-16. Very powerful and very capable, but it's not a nimble, high-speed racer. But with the wings folded up, the F-18 is a different beast entirely. In another video, we'll take it with the wings folded up to some altitude and really cut loose on the afterburners, get the speed going, and see if it flies as well and as stably with the wings folded up. Though we aren't exactly flying slow here. Right now we're doing about 570 miles per hour at about 1,000 feet and ripping right along, and it just handles beautifully. Very nimbly, but beautifully. It'd be fun to take it with the wings folded and try it in some PvP dogfights and see how it handles under those conditions as well. I've been pulling on the stick pretty hard in a few turns, especially coming around different legs of this flight, and it turns so nicely. It just turns on a dime. Again, it reminds me of the F-16. You lose a lot of energy in those sharp turns, but when you need to make them, the ability is there. It looks pretty cool too, almost like a spaceship out of Star Citizen or Star Trek perhaps. With the wings folded like this, the sidewinders on the wingtips look a bit like little nacelles, don't they? An FA-18 with warp drive. Now that would be an impressive beast, wouldn't it? Alright, what I'm going to do is fly this long leg of the journey to that island out there, and as I come around the turn, I'm going to go ahead and unfold the wings in order to, in the same flight, get a direct sense of a comparison and contrast between flight characteristics. I think that'll give me a more real sense of the difference in the feel of the aircraft if I do it all in the same flight than if I go ahead and land with the wings folded and then fly the aircraft again with the wings folded out. The difference is just going to be more immediate, Alright, we're pretty close to this little island, and it's about time to unfold those wings. You may have also noticed I'm not using the mouse cursor all that much, and it's because quite some time back I got hold of a wonderful application called Touch Portal. I'll cover it at some time. It works on both Android tablets and iPads, and I used it to configure button switches and levers for all the more commonly needed controls of the aircraft. Essentially, it works something like WinWing's combat and takeoff panels. It controls pretty much all the same aspects on the F-18, and I also set up a custom panel to emulate the UFC, the upfront controls. We'll look at touch portal more in some future videos as well. But I have the wings folded out now, and the difference in the aircraft's handling is immediately noticeable. It's gone from being that jumpy hybrid racehorse of a feel to that of a powerful, able but not quite so nimble police cruiser. A hard turn with the wings folded out is steady, stable, reliable, doesn't feel quite so fast though. Unfortunately, while you can fold the wings out in midair, you can't fold them back up. And I say unfortunately because going into a dogfight with the wings folded up would make this thing a real beast to reckon with. You would sacrifice a lot of energy making the incredibly sharp turns it can pull off, but there are times when those incredibly sharp turns work for you, and I'm okay with sacrificing the energy. A dogfight, sometimes even BVR, is a matter of energy management. Alright, we're gonna fly back here and get to just a hair above the water. And I've flown the FA-18 an awful lot, so I don't think I'm going to find this to be any real challenge. What I do find though, I notice right off as I begin my descent down to low over the water, is that with the FA-18's wings folded up, the plane felt a little wobbly. Now, that's not to say it was actually wobbly. I think it was just so nimble with the wings folded up that it felt overly wobbly to me because I'm so used to flying this plane in the proper configuration. So I found myself really hesitant to do some of the more daring things, like do a large portion of this flight at somewhere between 100 and 200 feet, like I'm about to do right here. But with the wings folded out, the plane is very stable, very reassuring in that sense. And so, at a gut level, I don't feel any particular compunction about flying low. I think the plane is actually a bit more stable, but also a big part of why I feel so much more confident flying now is the plane like this is just well within my comfort zone. And just pulling a turn there and pressing hard on my TPR rudder pedals, going a bit to the left. As expected, with the wings folded out, there's not much rudder authority at all. At least not at these high speeds. If I were going slower, I'd have more rudder authority, but anybody who's flown the FA-18 knows that the ship's flight computer greatly restricts what the rudders can do for you when you're in flight. I've always thought that was a shame, really. The FA-18 has so much potential, but the limited direct control of the rudders while in flight, especially in a BFM situation, a basic fighter maneuver combat kind of situation, is very restricting. Maybe somebody out there knows of a way to gain more rudder authority. If you happen to know, I would love to hear about it. I've looked into it in the past, asked around on the DCS forums, and still haven't found any particular way to gain more control of the rudders. But here we are, just cruising at about 100 feet over the ocean at 577 knots. And one great thing you can say about this aircraft in this wings folded out configuration is it is rock solid, steady, and reliable. So what we're going to do is fly back to the island. I'm going to finish up the last leg of this trip, and we're going to set this bird down. Alright, we've flown back over the island and we are now descending toward the aircraft carrier. I haven't been able to figure out how to get the TACAN number or the ILS number on this aircraft carrier in the Cold Start Marianas Island instant mission, so I'm just going to have to eyeball this one. I've set this plane down so much it shouldn't be too much of a challenge. The only challenge really being that DCS has to be constantly practiced. DCS aircraft are complex and extremely realistically rendered, and the skills required to fly them and especially do more demanding things like make an aircraft carrier landing, these are perishable skills. And I had set DCS aside for the last couple of months to learn how to fly and use Star Citizen properly, and to work on some other video projects that I've been producing. So let's see if I can put her in or if I just end up embarrassing myself. We have the hook down and we'll go ahead and drop the landing gear in just a moment. We want to make sure that everything else is properly configured and pretty much just ignore the guidance calls from the aircraft carrier's ATC and and manually fly her in using the old Mark 1 eyeball.
301, overhead Angels 1, state 5.7.
95, that hostile is active, got him.
301, tower, roger, BRC 26, signal is Charlie. 301. Roger, 717. Goliath, Anchor 26. 301, request landing.
He doesn't seem all that keen on giving me permission to land, but hey, it's just a virtual aircraft. We're gonna set her down anyway. What do you know? After 2 months, I've still got it. Not my best landing, but you know what? Given I haven't touched DCS in about 2 months, and I couldn't get the ILS or attacking to work at all, I have to say I'm pretty happy with this landing. Like they say, any landing you can walk away from is a good landing, and I'm pretty happy with this one. So while I get these wings folded up again and get off the runway, yeah, with the wings folded up, this plane is a lot of fun to fly. It goes from handling like a powerful but stately police cruiser to a nimble, fiery little sports car. You know, I should have thought to try firing off a few air-to-air missiles with the wings up and see how that handled. Now, we'll do that again in the future and target some aircraft and see what happens there. Will it affect the accuracy? Can I even fire the missiles at all? I guess we'll see. That's the fun of trying these things in a flight simulator. Anything goes because everything is safe. Thanks for joining me, and in the future we'll be taking a deeper dive into the DCS flight simulator, how to make the most out of it, and how to make the most out of some of the peripherals that are out there for it, such as various rudder pedals and HOTAS systems, and very useful add-ons like Touchpad and Matrix. And if you enjoyed this video, please take a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps going forward. Thanks.